power leaders. If you think about a lot of the leaders of the last generation of very successful companies, let's call them the Facebooks of the world, the Ubers of the world, they weren't very empathetic or loving leaders, let's say, right?
That's so.
Very successful companies, don't get me wrong, that have changed the world. They'll give them that, and made tons of money and changed how we all live. So you have to respect the innovation and the impact there. But in terms of like making people happier or making the people around them feel good, not necessarily the reputation they have, right?
Not
and
really.
I think that the next generation is about, or we just don't survive.
Let's. Hello and welcome aboard. Get ready for a new episode here at the Virtual Frontier. Great you have found a way back to the show. And if you just joined recently, do yourself a little favor, hit the subscribe button right away so you never miss new episodes. So let's get to our today's guest, Adam Smiley Posowski. Smiley is an international keynote speaker and best-selling author. Our conversation today is focused on Smiley's recent book titled Friendship in the Age of Loneliness. Now you think, hold on, this is a business and management podcast. Why do they talk about friendship? Spoiler alert, having a best friend at work can dramatically boost your happiness and productivity. But hey, let's take a step back and look at the title. Age of Loneliness. Is loneliness something you can relate to? When have you felt lonely the last time? Studies show that many do. After 2 years, where many of us have lived partially or sometimes even in complete confinement, it is time to reconnect with the people we love and work with. If you have spent the last 2 years lonely and you wonder how to get out of this sickening dark spiral, this episode is especially for you. See you in just a flash on the other side. Hello, Smiley. Welcome to the show here at the Virtual Frontier. I'm really happy to have you, and you have found some time to speak with me. Our topics that I want to touch with you a little bit today are the new world of work, hybrid work, leadership, friendship at work, and one of your specialties is loneliness. But why this is one of your topics that you're speaking about, maybe before we start off, can you give our audience a little introduction about who you are, what is your background, and what you're doing?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. I'm so glad we could have this conversation. My name is Adam Smiley Posowski. I'm an author, public speaker, and a workplace belonging expert. So my most recent book, I've written 3. My most recent book is called Friendship in the Age of Loneliness, An Optimist's Guide to Connection, all about kind of the loneliness epidemic in the United States and beyond. And I spend a lot of my time speaking at companies all around employee engagement, helping people find more purpose and meaning in their work, and helping people build kind of connection in the digital age, especially in this moment of the pandemic, post-pandemic, this kind of vast shift to remote, hybrid, virtual work that everyone's going through, and helping people forge really strong human connection in these challenging times.
Yeah, they really are. I asked my previous interview guests, and I keep continuing that because it's really also an interesting, and you're an expert on that field. But what has changed for you personally during the last 2 years in the pandemic in your life? Probably the things that have worked before didn't work anymore, and how you especially adapt to this new situations that you confront in your personal life.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the silver lining, if you could call it that, because it's been a pretty horrific 2 years, almost going on 3 at this point for everyone, has been this kind of rethinking of what it means to be fulfilled. I think I was definitely someone that was kind of out there going, always go-getting, always moving, always going to the next conference, the next event, going on lots of dates, trying to meet, going a date with a woman, meeting somebody else. Always like there's something greater out there. I got into a relationship right before the pandemic, right in January 2020, which turned out to be quite lucky because then we ended up quarantining together after 6 weeks of knowing each other. And I think that my world just kind of shrunk a little bit. And I learned that I could be happier with less, and that I could, didn't need all of those things necessarily. Now, I greatly miss that, connection and being out there and going to events and travel. But I think that I learned that, we need a lot less than people think we need. And that, you kind of have what you have, and that's a beautiful thing. And to be grateful for what you have, I think, is definitely the biggest probably lesson I took away was, if you have health, that's something that is not guaranteed. If you have, life, that's something that's not guaranteed. And if you have people in your life, even if it's just a few, that's actually not guaranteed either. Friends, family, close people. And that we're always wanting more followers, more connection, more people, more ads, more shares, all of this stuff. And that there's something beautiful about being like, wait a second, who's actually here? Who am I cooking dinner with tonight? Right? Who am I going to see on Friday night? And that's enough. And that really, I think, came true for me just by the nature of the last 2 years. Really was the lesson I mostly take away.
Yeah, a lot of things have like condensed down to the essence, and then you're seeing, this is what is really there, right? And without a lot of bullshit that happens also at work.
Right.
We're gonna talk about that later on. But yeah. In a lot of aspects, things got more clear and really refocused for many of us. But one thing I wouldn't miss so much or reduce is hugging other people and getting like really in physical contact, right?
Yes, physical touch.
I was listening to your book, and this was something that stood out to me, like what that makes with you as a person, your hormones and everything, and probably that is something we should get back to as fast as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually, one of these, I know we'll get into this, but one of the things I worry about, people talk about the vast benefits of virtual work and hybrid work. And there's a lot of data that shows that that's true. People are happier, right? They're higher performing. They're more productive. They're, have more time with their family. They don't have to commute. There's so many benefits to a remote or hybrid work environment. But one of the things that I worry about as we go deeper and deeper into kind of the virtual age, which we've been living in for quite a while now, and we're only going to get this, regardless of the pandemic, this was accelerating anyway in terms of our reliance on technology. Yeah. There's many benefits there. And I am always going to be in the camp of human connection and the power. We're social beings, and social beings doesn't just mean connecting online or connecting through a headset or connecting on Fortnite or through a VR, Oculus, or even on Zoom or whatever. It actually really means like being in a room with somebody, touching someone's hand, hugging them, looking them face to face, smelling them, looking at them. That's actually biologically what gives us joy, and what allows us to survive is being around other people. It's how we've evolved as human beings. That's just kind of fact. That's the science. Those endorphins, the dopamine, that is completely more powerful than you'll ever get from a red dot notifying you that you have 3 likes or 2 shares or whatever. And I think that we need to celebrate it. It seems like that's just obvious. Everyone wants that. We know. And then you start to look at where things are headed, and especially with, tech addiction and where how much time kids are, frankly, everyone, but especially teenagers are spending on TikTok, Instagram, everything. And you start to say, actually, no, we need to have a movement for people to kind of say, like, actually, it's really good to hug your friend. Like, actually, if you're having an issue with your partner, you should sit down and talk to them face to face. Like, actually, like, go hang out with your friend, like, sit with them, be with them. Now, I know we couldn't always do that in the past 2 years, but that's the future that we need to be building, not just one where we're all connected through a screen. Sometimes we can be connected through a screen, but not all of the time. That's not going to lead to a healthy existence.
Yeah. You were mentioning in your book about your participation in this camps. Would you elaborate like in a 2 minutes on a top level what you're doing there and especially what is the essence, because I find this really interesting, as I see that there's on the one side we are all striving and starving for connectedness and getting together, but on the other side we're getting always more lonely. So this seems to me an interesting move.
Yeah. So one of the impetuses for this book, Friendship in the Age of Loneliness, was the death of one of my close friends, Levi Felix, who died at the age of 30. He had started this amazing digital detox Camp Grounded, which is a tech-free summer camp for adults that I was a counselor at. And we did over about 15 camps in 5 years. Started in California in the Redwoods, and we did them all over the US, in New York, in Texas, in North Carolina. And it was all about the power of in-person connection. So people would arrive at camp on a Friday. We'd lock away all of their digital devices. So if you're wearing an Apple Watch, you got to put that away, iPad, iPhone, laptop if you had it, whatever, digital devices, a watch, anything.
Everything that could be connected.
Anything that could be connected. And then folks got to basically reconnect with themselves and each other in a way where technology wasn't present for 4 days, right? So you can't use your real name. So you can't use digital technology at camp, right? You can't use your real name. So instead of, someone being Adam or Roger or Maria, they were Cookie Surprise or Bricky St. James or Popcorn or whatever superhero or whatever nickname they had from childhood. If you didn't have a nickname, we'd give people a nickname. And basically the premise there is that there was also, talking about age. So you don't say, how old are you? 22, you're 73, because we judge people based on these things. So it's basically allowing people to kind of decide who they want to be and kind of connect from a place of that inner child. If you think about the way we play when we're kids, it's just like people run out to the park, to the playground, and they're running around, and there's no like, what do you do? Where do you work? Oh, you work at Facebook? Oh, you work at a nonprofit? Or, like you're 73, or like you don't matter to me, or you can't give me money. That's how we connect as adults. But as kids, it's just like, do you like to play? Me too. Awesome. You're going to go down the slide? I'm going to go down the slide. Do you like watercolors? I love watercolors. Like, that's how we play, but we miss that as adults. So it was this really incredible movement that Levi had built, really as kind of both for fun, but also as this very serious kind of beacon to kind of call attention to tech addiction. It was started this organization in Oakland, and kind of the center of the San Francisco Bay Area and Silicon Valley, and so many of the people that came to camp were working at some of these tech companies. Many of them were in fact leading these companies, right? So the vision was, not everyone that came to camp worked in tech, but many did. And the vision was that people would come to this camp and not go back and quit their job or say, I'm never going to be on my iPhone again, or like, I'm going to be a Luddite or move to the woods and go off grid. That's not what it was. It was, I'm going to have a healthier relationship with technology, right? I've experienced what it's like to know that I don't need to post something every 2 seconds, or that I can share my feelings with someone just face to face, right? That was kind of the goal, and have people kind of reconnect. Disconnect to reconnect was kind of the tagline of camp. So it wasn't disconnect to disconnect and just be like, I'm out of here, I quit. It was disconnect to reconnect to yourself, to the people around you, to what really matters in the world, so that so that we can survive. Because I think that so many people don't take that opportunity to really just be present with who they are and what they're looking for in life. And what's really interesting is that so many people that went to camp had this experience only 4 days, right? It's not like that long, but they come back and they were like, rethinking, how what they wanted to do at work, or maybe they wanted to design better technology, or maybe they weren't doing something that they cared about and they really wanted to. And we didn't even talk about work at camp. There was no like career development. It wasn't like a conference, like in the traditional kind of corporate conference world. But because of the experience of getting to play as an adult, people had these profound transformational experiences, because they were kind of able to reconnect to themselves authentically and connect to other people in just a human to human way. That is just, it just shows how much that's lacking in our adult lives in the society that we live in today. I think that's why camp was so powerful. And that was really, one of the reasons I wanted to write this book, was to kind of share some of the lessons that Levi had taught me and that Camp Grounded had taught me, and the people that really are these kind of beacons of light for play and community and and kind of human connection, to kind of share their stories and share some of the stuff that they're doing, basically to share their ideals. I have a chapter in this book that kind of talks about, what the importance of play for adults, and this idea that, as adults, we've been taught to know the answers. But actually, one of the ways that we learn best, and if you actually look at the data behind psychological safety, fostering this idea that it's okay to be yourself at work and you can be safe, is to not know the answers, right? Is to not know it, which is, it's like how we are as kids. It's like, I want to go to school, so I learn things. I don't know, right? Like, that's what you're supposed to do, right? It's to be okay to learn and to enjoy the questions and to make mistakes. And play allows us that space, right? If you think about improv, it's like you just kind of like jump in and you're like, I'm going to be silly. I don't know. But that's the rules. You can't say no, right? But as adults, we're like, I don't know the answer. I'm not going to raise my hand, or I'm not an expert. I'm not going to ask for the promotion, or I'm scared of this. And then by playing more as adults, we relearn these things that we intrinsically know because we all experience them as children, what it's like to kind of opt in, to say yes, to try new things, to ask questions, to make mistakes, to be silly, to be weird, to celebrate somebody for making a mistake, to celebrate someone that's being left out, right? All of these things that are so, so important actually for an adult life, they get buried somewhere after you grow up, or you go to high school or university, and then you're kind of told to don't say anything unless you know the answer. Like, you have to be the best person, or you have to know everything and get to some fictitious place of success or expertise that just doesn't exist. And then people become really lonely adults. So bringing back more of that energy that is kind of like a playground, right? The kind of, there's not a mistake here. You can do anything you want. There's no wrong answer here, right? There's only questions, and there's only trying, and there's only exploration and curiosity. And
that's the point, right? We're living in a more and more uncertain world. The leaders and companies are doing VUCA leadership and everything, and we keep doing the same things that we have done before in a new environment, a new setting, and as you just mentioned, a little bit more play and openness and failure culture, celebrating failure instead of punishing or discouraging people to make failures is really a thing. Are you planning to reopen those camps, or what is the plan? Because I think those should be mandatory for everyone, at least once per year, I think.
So there's been a couple spin-offs because camp hasn't happened for a couple of years. So there's a couple people that were leaders in the camp community that have started their own. There's an organization called Custom Camps. There's the Go Game that have kind of sprung from that environment. So this exists, this kind of movement around play at work and kind of team retreats that offer that camp environment. Camp Grounded itself, there was bought by somebody, and he's hoping to bring it back. It's kind of unclear if that's going to happen, but hopefully it will happen again once it's safe.
Sign me up for it.
I know, it's so fun. I would recommend it to anyone. I've been 13 times, and I would still go tomorrow if it, just because, especially right now, just the power of bringing people together and being in that environment and that rush. And also just want to say, like, it's not just for extroverts, people, I think what's powerful about camp is that, we really try to create an environment where everyone can show up as who they are. So if you're an introvert and it kind of intimidates you that people might be really excited or loud or, outgoing, that's great too. We welcome that. And, you will find other people there that maybe want to spend time alone or read a book or sit under a redwood tree or have just a one-on-one conversation or go for a walk in the redwoods, that's also beautiful, right? And you might have someone that's playing really hard and it's excited, and then in 10 minutes is like, okay, alone time. And that's also great. And there's no right way to do camp. And that's, I think, a good metaphor for life, that's not often kind of shared that often. You know, that's rare these days, right? We live in this culture, especially in technology, Silicon Valley, or even in just kind of corporate business, that there seems to be like this right way to do things. And I actually think that's quite that's quite limiting. That's a real limiting belief, you know, that this is the way we do things. You know, that's actually, I think, if anything, the last 2 years have showed us that's quite the opposite of the approach, right? Yeah. We thought, oh, this is the way we work. This is how we're working. Boom, a pandemic, like, you know. And then every time you try to say, you know, I always hear this with people kind of coming up with their return to work policies. You know, this is our new policy, right? And then 2 weeks later, it changes. Now we got it. This is it. Yeah. This is what we're doing. And then it's like, well, there's a new variant. Scratch that. Or, well, this doesn't work. And it's like the lesson there is flexibility and saying, okay, we're going to trial this. We're going to see what happens. We're going to survey. We're going to see what people want. And yes, we very well might change things because that's what a company does, right? Mm-hmm. You're adaptive. You're kind of agile. You're experimenting. You're trying new things constantly. You're not coming up with this fixed mindset. You have to have the growth mindset. And I think that it takes experiences like camp for that. You know, you can't always get that from just reading a business book or reading an HBR article, you know, or spending a lot of time on LinkedIn. You know, there's great tools and resources on those kind of places. But really, sometimes you need that kind of human experience to really blow your mind, to really kind of say, okay, I get it. Right. I really have had this kind of like life-changing experience. I mean, people have that from spending time in nature or going on adventures or all of these other things. I think often it's the things that are least related to work that help us have the most epiphanies and kind of understanding of what we want out of our own work life and how we want to build culture in our organizations. It's actually not the most work-related things.
Yeah. Completely agree with that. And I was just remembering we had a really nice birthday party a couple of weeks ago with some of our kids from school we have here, and it was like the first big gathering after 2 years, right, with the pandemic, and was like in the outside, big tables and everything. I felt like in the Toscana, having those family events with all people with their parents and everything. I was, yes, that's it. And I'm still having this, like, not every day, but it comes every time back again to my mind. I said, this was really a nice experience after that long time, and you're nourishing yourself of that in afterwards, right?
Yes, yeah, that's what it's about. I mean, those types of experiences are what people are looking for, right? It's kind of that peak experience and that coming together and sharing food and sharing laughter and sharing stories. That's life. That's what this is all about.
Why we are on the other side do need those special environments, like you mentioned with the camp that you did a couple of years ago. And on the other side, we have this huge loneliness pandemic, let's say it. My question is, when did we lose it? I haven't got there. It can, like, social media is maybe one influence, but it's not everything. So where did we lose it with the connection?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to pinpoint exactly, you know, when. There was this great book, I don't know if you're familiar with, called Bowling Alone by Robert Putnam. He wrote it kind of, I believe, in 2000 about kind of the decline. This is an America-focused book about kind of the decline of American community. Mm-hmm. And he kind of talked about bowling alone, like this idea that there used to be like bowling leagues and, you know, these kind of ways that people got together in their, you know, maybe with their church or their local VFW post or kind of community organizations, neighborhood kind of based places where people would go hang out, essentially. And then kind of the decline of that American community fabric has been happening, you know, over the course of many decades. And I think that, so there's a piece there, you know, there's kind of people, at least in the United States, are less kind of connected to religion or connected to kind of that type of community. and maybe don't live closer to their families. Again, this is a US related problem. And there's a real kind of culture around independence that I think like messes with this. But I think that technology, social media, at least in recent years, has really accelerated the problem. Yeah. So it's taken it from something that was already brewing in terms of people just more disconnected, more fragmented, and basically kind of said, okay, you know, you're on your own. Right. And I think that that's what you see. I mean, loneliness, 2/3 of Americans are lonely. Right.
I mean,
60%. And that was before COVID. That was before the pandemic. So that was like early 2020 data. The loneliness has only increased for young people, for parents. 80% of Gen Z and 70% of millennials in the United States are lonely. Britain, you know, the problem was so bad in the UK that they hired a minister for loneliness. The problem is really, really brutal in Japan, Germany as well, Russia. This is a global issue. And I think that it's really been exacerbated by kind of this push to social media where, you know, people just, there's less incentive for people to need to spend time with each other, right? We spend 4% of our time with friends, just 4%. Right. And meanwhile, people are spending people that are active social media users are spending 50 minutes a day on Instagram, 50 minutes a day on Facebook. I don't even know that the amount for TikTok, but for teenagers that are on TikTok, it's probably an hour or more. Average person spending 8 to 12 hours a day on a screen. Right. So you're taking something that was already a problem and then saying, here's a really awesome thing that you can look at all of the time. And you don't even have to leave your house.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's some value in that device, but there's also, you know, some really kind of some drawbacks there. So, you know, I don't think the problem is just technology, but I think it's a huge, huge aspect of it. If you look at kind of the way that with the data in terms of when loneliness has spiked, and then also related to kind of teenage anxiety, depression, even suicide, it's all around when the iPhone kind of started to become, you know, around 2008, 2010, and when the iPhone became, you know, pretty much ubiquitous. That's when the data, this all starts to really spike, is around when everyone had the iPhone, you know, so it wasn't just computers. Then it's like, okay, now you actually have social media in your pocket all of the time. And so, you know, this is, you know, and it's, you know, chronic loneliness is said to be as dangerous as your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Okay.
So it's like actually really, really, you know, really, really hurtful, right? It's like it's related to increased threat of heart disease, stress, Alzheimer's. It's literally killing people, right? Yeah. And meanwhile, social support can increase your chance of survival by up to 50%. Right? So it literally saves your life to have more close social contact with people.
Yeah. Do you know from your experience, because you just mentioned some countries that are really bad with that, are there countries or regions that are like better with connecting or connection and still more connected?
That's a great question. I don't have exact data on that. I mean, I know that like there's always that, you know, that data around Bhutan being the happiest country in the world based on, you know, which is really interesting because, you know, has so much less money than a lot of other, you know, first world countries. Yeah. But people, I think, probably feel more connected and just have a closer kind of connection to other people. But I think that would be something really interesting to look at in terms of kind of who are the most connected countries. My guess is there's a correlation there between a little bit less work, less access to technology, and then just more of a kind of cohesion around community and family.
Yeah.
Right. People simply living longer with their parents or living in more multi-generational households, that type of thing, which is not prevalent, obviously, in the United States for the most part. Yeah. So that I would think that those would be kind of correlated there.
And you went to Cuba, right? I listened that in your book, and if I remember right, I never went to Cuba, but here in Mexico, this is something similar, that you have like this plazas where people are just gathering for a day. And there was I don't remember where did I read or thought it, that before, in Cuba, internet is limited, really, and they have like those internet connections on those plazas. And now, as everyone is getting like more cell phones in their hand, before that, people on this plazas, they were talking, chatting around, and now everyone is just on the cell phone on
their
these
phone.
plazas.
Right.
So
Right.
they have the
that,
same muscle.
that
But it's
aspect of
still limited. It's still limited just to the corner, you know?
Right. The aspect of Latin American culture and European culture where there's just like the plaza, and it's like you can just hang out. That's what you're supposed to do. It's just like you're supposed to loiter, right? Whereas America has much more of a culture on no loitering. Like if you're not supposed to be here, leave. But it's actually like, no, why don't you just let people hang out all day? That's why I think public libraries are one of the coolest community institutions we have, at least in the United States, in many cities, where people can just go and chill. They can read a book. They have computers, free internet access. People can apply for a job. People can find housing. People can just sit and talk to their buddy. They can stay warm. They can do whatever they want. Like we need more institutions like that. You know, and the other thing is like, you know, you're seeing this now with loneliness is, you know, when people are lonely, they don't have purpose in life, right? If you're lonely and isolated, you know, the kind of base there might be, okay, you're spending more time online, you're on chat rooms, you're video games, you're kind of just socially a little bit isolated and you're not connected. If you really want to go deeper and get where it gets really scary, then it leads to potentially more drug use, right? More violence. Potentially you're then get drawn into some sort of conspiracy theory, or you join an organization that is like a hate group or violent because, oh, they're giving you purpose. They're giving you connection. They're giving you identity, right? Because it's a human need to belong, to connect, to want to find your tribe. Yep. And if you're not finding that with your friends, or doing something creative, or doing something productive, or doing something artistic, or that helps your community, right? Something out of love and service and benefiting society, you can also find that doing something really, really bad, right? Yep. And there's really people that are really good on that side of recruiting those people to do bad things and say, oh, you're like an isolated teenager with nothing to do. Here's a gun, right? Yeah. Here's why you should hate this group of people that doesn't look like you. That's what's really scary about this loneliness thing, is that people think of it as like, oh, I'm sorry, you don't have friends, or you're lonely. It's like, actually, this is a crisis that affects the future of humanity.
Exactly.
If you zoom out and see like really what's happening here, a lot of this stuff stems to people just not having a path and not having connection with each other. And
also this reflection point, right? You were just telling about social media or computer games. If there's nobody around you that like says, hey, you have like 5 hours today on social media, or have played computer games, maybe time for doing something different.
Yes.
That's
or let's go outside and
missing,
play,
right?
or you should come. Let's come to my dinner on Friday night, or come check out this. You know, let's go to this thing together, or then you don't have much going on, and that's really scary. I mean, 15% of men in the United States right now have no close friends at all.
Yeah,
no close friends, and that's not a good recipe for society. You know, when men are just sitting around not having much going on, that doesn't lead to good things usually.
Talking about this whole spectrum of being disconnected, and let's maybe dive a little bit into that topic of, or in this context of work, because there's also like this huge amount of disconnectedness at work, and as you were just mentioning, this probably comes at a high price, and companies on a corporate level, I think there is not so much recognition for that, and we're taking it not really serious. On the individual level, I think many of us are they scared to look really out for connected on or connection on the work space. I don't know.
That's a great question. I mean, the costs of loneliness are well documented. I mean, lonely employees, cost the U.S. economy $406 billion a year. So they're less productive, they're less engaged, they're more likely to quit. 45% lower productivity, double the missed days at work due to stress or being sick, higher risk of turnover, lower quality of work. And then on the flip side of that, when you have the belonging, when you have the connection, there's a 56% increase in job performance, drop in turnover risk, reduction in sick days, can result in a savings of tens of millions of dollars for a large company. More promotions, more raises, way more likely that someone's going to be engaged and recommend their job to somebody else. So I think that clearly people know that this is a problem, right? The disconnection. I think A, they're scared to face it. And B, there's this little push-pull between, friendship connection at work and then not wanting to go too far. Because there's also this pushback where it's like, hey, people want to be part of something. They want to be part of a team, but you don't want to say you have to be one of us and part of a family, because people are like, well, I have a family, right? I have friends outside of work, right? Yes. So, I think people are really scarred, especially in light of the pandemic, from this kind of, especially in tech, people have gone a little too far with, okay, you're part of us, you're a family, you're loyal to us, but you have to work here till 8 p.m. every day, and get your haircut here and do your laundry here and have dinner here. Yeah. And it's like, whoa, that's too much, right?
Because I think this is different. I love to have friends at work, but putting this family theme around work, it's like more with the mafia, like you have to do that and that and that, and then we love you, and then you are family. But if you're not applying the rules, then you're punished,
Right.
And that's different. That's
and the truth is, a family can fire you, right? The families don't fire you. A workplace can fire you. Right.
Exactly.
So that's, I think, a good distinction there. But but friendship is really important, right? Employees who have a best friend at work are 7 times more engaged, right?
Chew on that.
If you don't have a close friend at work, there's only a 1 in 12 chance you're going to be engaged with your job. So basically, if you don't have a close friend at work, you're not going to like your job. You're going to quit. You're going to hate it, or you're going to be getting paid to do a shitty job, which isn't good for anybody, right? Not good for you, not good for your coworkers, your manager, your team, the CEO, the bottom line. It's not good. So yes, friendship at work was really important. And I think that people are scared because they realize that some of that means that people are going to have to work less because they're going to be spending time connecting. And I think, yes, that's true, right? Data shows when people have more work-life balance and when they are able to leave work at home, when they have more time to just connect with people, and they're not always just doing tasks, and that's their connection with their coworkers is not just working, they're going to make closer relationships. That's okay. That's actually in the name, I think, of producing higher quality work overall and having more engaged employees. I think people are really short-sighted about this. They say, if we take an hour to do team building, right? Or if we have that retreat, get everyone together on a Friday, right? We're wasting so many work hours, right? We're paying everyone to hang out and drink beer or play games, but they should be working. It's like, that's so short-sighted, because the relationships that form from that, this creative thinking, the time and space, the synergies, people being like, hey, you work on that project? I had an idea. Have you ever thought about this? That's not going to happen when someone's just always on Slack, right? That's going to happen when someone's taking a walk or getting a drink with somebody or having a meal or having coffee or just relaxing with a coworker. That's where those good ideas happen. So I think more space for connection that doesn't have to be around the meeting. And even within a meeting, having more space for connection is actually going to make people more excited about what they're doing.
Yeah. But do you have an idea around this dissonance between, we have on the one side this huge cost, you mentioned the number for over 400 billion in the US alone, and if it expanded to the globe, would be an incredible higher number that we have, that is studied already. And on the other side, we have our still day-to-day doing at work and how corporates and companies operate, and they are not really recognizing that. So as everyone wants to save money or make money, or we are in the best case are really interested in the well-being of our team members at work, why is it still? why you're not still like or already like topic number one on every news channel and talking about this topic with loneliness.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question. I think it's becoming a little bit more, top of mind in light of the pandemic. But I think that people think of this as a soft topic. They think of this as, that's not as important as business, as management, as leadership, as sales, as marketing, as some of these other things. They just don't see it as a huge issue. I think it's really short-sighted. But I think that it's becoming more, people get it because they see it. I think the Great Resignation is an example of this, right? So a lot of times, there are many reasons why people might quit their jobs. They're unhappy. They want to make more money. Their boss sucks. Their company sucks. They can do something else. They want to take time with their family. They want to start their own business. There's so many reasons. And disconnection is probably a big piece of it, right? And I think that companies are starting to recognize now, hey, if somebody doesn't have a tie to other people that they're working with, like what's holding them here, right? Those are going to be they're just going to be able, the second they see something else, they're just going to be like, I'm out of here. I'm trying something new.
Yeah.
Right. And that you're not going to have somebody, be connected to your organization for 5, 10, 15 years anymore, probably for the most part. So that there's somewhere in the middle there that's kind of the happy balance. Right. Because I think that's also a fallacy, is to say, okay, if we invest in friendship and everyone's happy here and we're always building close relationships, people will work here forever. No one wants to work there forever. That would be boring. Right. And that wouldn't be very interesting for the employee. Even if they have close friends, they're probably going to want to do something different, as they should.
No.
Right. Some people might stay a long time. Great. But not everyone. And that's okay. So there's some sort of place where you can meet in the middle there. But I think that just the biggest piece of this is that, I think we have to realize that this is basically, I like to say, like, belonging is everyone's job. Like, community connection is everyone's job. So it's not just the kind of HR department or kind of the, chief of people to kind of say, oh, let's build a more connected workforce. I think it's like part of a human's job in the virtual world we live in to kind of say, I'm going to look out for other people and try to build more friends at work for myself, my coworkers, for the people around me. Like, everyone has to kind of step up and do that, if that makes sense.
No,
right.
Completely.
It's I think we've long lived in this space where, like, oh yeah, HR is doing that, or that's not my job. I just work here. And look where we are today. That's not working. And it doesn't have to do with just the workplace. It has to do with humanity and kind of the social fabric of our cities and our towns and our communities and our countries. Like, this is everyone's problem. And I think that the loneliness issue is really deeply, deeply connected to so many other things, when it comes to, even climate, it comes inequality, when it comes to, access and human rights and just all of it. Building a more connected, respectful, kind of empathetic society allows us to essentially, like, survive, and not lead to, basically war or, destruction, So basically, I really believe that these things are really, really important beyond just kind of, the team day to day at a workplace.
Yeah. You mentioned in your book something nice, and maybe you can give some more tips or ideas around like how we can get to this connection. I remember I look here what you wrote is making like notes about others, what they really need when they are down. So when the time comes, you can really help them. And I found this amazing. I just wrote it down for myself, and I'm gonna look and start making more notes with all my colleagues and people that are surrounding me, because this is awesome. You spend time before something happening and think about your friends and your coworkers, and when the time comes, you have something at hand that you can really use.
Yeah, I love this. I think this was an idea I shared in the book. It was from my friend, Dr. Emily Onholt. She's a therapist. And she says, it's it's always this tendency when someone's sick, what do you need? Or what could I do for you? But like, if they're sick or they're going through it, no one really knows what to ask for, and they're tired and stressed. But the point is to kind of know and keep like a backlog so that you basically say, oh, this person loves this type of food, or they really love this flower, or they really love whatever, so that you kind of know when they need it and you just do it. Yeah. And it's like that act of like kind of like going the extra mile to just listen and be aware of what people want and what they're looking for. What a beautiful thing.
Exactly. Any other tips that we can apply as I feel also this is something that everyone has to stand up for and be accountable for themselves, how to engage with others and be more kind and have this closer relationships that really helps us to be better humans at the end, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a big proponent of ritual, right? So you're creating something that's ongoing, right? So instead of like a one-off, like you have a party or you do something one time, you kind of create something that's happening all of the time, over and over again. Maybe like a monthly hike or a book club or a adventure trip or a gratitude Wednesday, whatever it is that's kind of on the calendar that's repeating that people can look forward to. They remember the last one, they look forward to the next one. It kind of creates this continuity where people there's a thread line of the experience. This could be with friends at work, outside of work, whatever. But I think friendship really can grow in those containers of ritual. And really, I mean, sky's the limit in terms of what you're doing. But the point is, it's happening. It's recurring, right?
Yeah.
And there's maybe a set of customs of when you do each one, right? You start with a brief meditation, or everyone goes around the circle and says something they appreciate about somebody else. Like whatever those kind of customs are, you bring them to the next gathering. And that really is helpful, I think, to kind of create this kind of container. But I'm also, I in terms of another kind of thing, we were talking about, you were talking about the notes or kind of jotting down things to keep in mind for people. I mean, another one would also be making the ask, right? Like, so really creating containers for people to say what they need and what they're looking for. I think this is, really a lot of data kind of shows that, a lot of support at work, professionally and personally, but definitely professionally, requires somebody being able to ask to kind of stay what they need to make kind of like this, create containers for, hey, I'm really looking to do this more. I'd like to learn this skill. I'd like to be on this project. I'd like to be connected to this person, and then allowing people to support that need. Really kind of start, it's kind of mentorship, but also more just creating that space for people to be basically have psychological safety, because they know they can say what they need. They know they can admit that they aren't perfect. Newsflash, nobody's perfect. And you're also creating community, because people then say, oh, I can help you. I got your back, or I want to support you, or we're in this together. So like immediately there's this giving and receiving.
Talking a bit about the future of leadership and also about the future of work, I want to refer to an article that I found from you, and you mentioned there that we probably need a chief friendship officer. And I really like this idea. How we get there, we really need them as a formal role inside the company that is the same as the minister for loneliness, right? We need to tackle that more active and bring it to the public and broader public. Yeah.
Totally. I mean, this is something. I originally pitched an article to HBR about kind of every company needs a chief friendship officer, and they kind of said, we like it, but it doesn't seem realistic. And I didn't think of it as like everyone was going to make that hire, right? That not every company can do that. It was more kind of, hyperbole. I'm kind of provoking an idea, but trying to show how important the workplace friendship thing is, but also kind of saying, hey, at a society level, we need this, right? And I was clearly thinking in terms of like policies for someone to be thinking about how are we creating cities and towns and where people can become better friends? How are we bridging differences, across political spectrums, across differences, this type of thing? I think like by having that chief friendship officer, at the White House or in Parliament or wherever, it helps people, take this more seriously. But it can't just be at the government level. You also need it just in your community. So that's why in the book I talk about everyone needs to become a minister for loneliness. Everyone kind of needs to kind of take on this role in their own, just being like, oh, I'm going to look out, see on my block, connect people that don't know each other, maybe do a potluck, maybe do like a food drive or a toy drive or whatever it is that's bringing people closer together. And I think that we need more people kind of thinking like that. Like I am a chief friendship officer. I go around and I try to make people become closer friends because it's not going to happen out of the sky. Right.
Yeah.
And we got to kind of take that on. And I think that leads to, there was data that showed Nextdoor did a study with Julianne Holt-Lundstad, who's kind of one of the leaders in the loneliness research, and found that even knowing as few as 6 neighbors reduces your likelihood of feeling lonely. Right. So if you think about in every neighborhood, yes. What's that?
I'm getting there. Yes. I have at least 6 around me.
That's great. I mean, yeah. And, but that's, so just even beyond like kind of like your friends or the people in your community, just knowing 6 of your neighbors reduces the chance that you're going to be lonely. If you think about it, you could probably figure that out in a day or a weekend, but nobody does.
No.
Right? We just spend months and months being like, I don't really know anyone, or I say hi to that person, but I haven't introduced myself. Like that kind of requires some individual responsibility, but also wouldn't it be beautiful if like every neighborhood had a captain that was like, okay, Saturday morning bagels, or, we're delivering flowers today or whatever it is. Like these little things, I think go a long way. These interventions.
And then I remember this one phrase that also is mentioned in your book from your friend Lewis that says, yeah, you can measure a person's life by the number of lives they've touched. And so, and this in the context from a chief friendship officer, I think this is a really responsible role and position in every, not just in a corporate environment, but something great all for society.
Yes, right. And that kind of, the Harvard did this study, the Harvard study of adult development, longest kind of longitudinal study of adult happiness ever done, starting in, I think, 1938 or 1940. They tracked the health and happiness of Harvard folks that were sophomores then at Harvard University all the way, I think, 80 years. And they found that the people that were the healthiest at the age of at 80 had the healthiest relationships at the age of 50.
Look at that.
Right. So it had nothing to do with kind of how much money they had or how successful they were or their status or, what their job was or their bank accounts or what they had achieved in life. It all had to do with who was in their life at the age of 50. Did they have close relationships? They have people in their life that they loved, that loved them back. That was the key. That was the key to a healthy, happy life. Amazing, because that's free. Right?
Costs nothing.
It costs nothing, but we don't always live like that.
How can the future leaders from in the corporate context can really create those kind of workspaces where you have great experience, where the workplace itself is like attractive to a place to be, whatever setting that might be in the future. What we're not doing today, but maybe should have a look into the future, right? To be more attractive, especially for those new and more present workforce from the millennials, as they have like a completely different outlook on the whole topic of work.
I truly believe that when I think about the companies of the future that are really leading the way, they're going to basically be containers for people to come together and build things together. They're going to be basically like playgrounds for adults, in terms of not like the ball pits and the kombucha, on tap and that kind of, Googleification of the office, that kind of stuff. But I mean more in terms of connection, creativity, collaboration, basically places where people can come together and almost like learning hubs, almost kind of like the university work vibe. That's, I think, the future. That it's less about like, we're leading the way and we are the best at this. And it's more of like, we create a container where people can come in, share ideas, and solve huge problems. That's what, and where people can get together. Like that's, I think, going to be that to me is the future of work. I like to say the future of work is human connection, because, there is going to be no shortage of ways to virtually engage with people, right? From VR, from, all of this, the metaverse, all of this stuff from virtual. What's going to be rare, what's going to be highly, highly valuable is people that are people that have people skills, right? That can communicate, that can listen, that can have empathy, that can disagree productively, that can give feedback, that can motivate, that can inspire other people. Like you can't have a robot do that. You can't have AI do that. You can't have AI kind of make someone feel better about their day, right? So I really believe like leadership in a way is kind of this people skill that is currently not necessarily hired for, or is maybe by very like smart organizations, but less of the HR role of admin and more of the HR role of advisor, mentor, motivator, enabler, life coach, if you will, if you think about, or kind of that type of role, I think is going to be incredibly important for leaders. If you think about a lot of the leaders of the last generation of very successful companies, let's call them the Facebooks of the world, the Ubers of the world, they weren't very empathetic or loving leaders, let's say, right?
So.
Very successful companies, don't get me wrong, that have changed the world. They'll give them that, and made tons of money and changed how we all live. So you have to respect the innovation and the impact there. But in terms of like making people happier or making the people around them feel good, not necessarily the reputation they have, right?
Not
and
really.
I think that the next generation is is about or we just don't survive. Or we just don't make it, which is totally possible. Like I'm a realist. I'm not like, I'm an optimist, but I'm also very clear that we have some really big issues facing humanity right now, from the climate, from political kind of disagreement and inequality that are and migration, all this stuff that is very, very, very real and could really, be unsolvable. But I think if we're going to solve it, if we're going to get to survive and to build a better world, it requires people kind of leading out of love and leading out of, not out of profit, not out of dominance, not out of kind of, world domination, and much more out of love and service, compassion, empathy, understanding, admitting a mistake, being wrong, being like, I got this wrong, I'm going to do better. Right? No one has all the right answers. Awesome. Like that kind of, those, they used to be called soft skills, right? But I think it's like, these are,
they're just
connection skills. They're just skills. They're actually, they're vital. They're the future.
Vital skills. Yeah.
They're vital skills. They're humanity skills. That's what this is. That's kind of, I think, where we're headed.
Having this whole perspective in mind, what would be some advice you give for person that is listening right now, or our audience in general speaking, like taking this first practical steps toward those kind of leadership attributes that you just mentioned? Like what can I do as a leader right now, going back to office tomorrow, whatever,
right,
to make a difference, right? To start making a difference on a small level, maybe, but just getting it off and start.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I would say that, just coming to a place of from praise and appreciation. If you can just think of some, who is one person every day that, can you give one new person every day a little bit more appreciation and praise and gratitude for their work? And then who is somebody that's not being recognized or hasn't been recognized, and can, can you reach out to them and let them know in a kind of thoughtful way, either calling them and telling them, seeing them face to face if you can, or calling them on the phone and letting them know what a great job that they're doing, or how they, impacted you. I think just goes such a long way. It's so simple, but I think it's really, really important. I also think that, especially right now, kind of remembering that people are human, and remembering that that it's been a really long 2 years plus. It's been a long stretch, and to the extent that you can have empathy and understanding for where people are, and just remember that all of this other stuff beyond work should come first. And I don't think that that's actually what a lot of leaders say. But that will actually end up helping people do better work by allowing them to spend more time with their friends, more time with their families, like go see the doctor, see a therapist, like go on a vacation. All of those other things are really more important, frankly, than the report of the day, or, catching up on Slack, or, getting something in on Friday by 5:00. Like, nobody cares. Like, that's all going to get done. And that stuff at the end of the day isn't as important as someone just having a healthier life. So I think that remembering that and telling that to your people goes a very, very, very long way in this moment.
Yeah, and I just remember a conversation I had a couple of weeks ago with another guest on the podcast, and I like to repeat it because it was just like enlightening. In the work, even in the workspace, right? If you get there and you are physically hurt, broken leg, broken arm, whatever, you're not going to work, right? Everyone is going to say, "Hey, what's going on with you? How can I help you with your broken leg?" Right? And but with all this mental aspects that plays into our mental well-being, and everyone, we're not taking that so serious until now, and probably in this context of getting more connected to others, and building better relationships, this is also really, really important, like to have this mental well-being like really implement in the company culture, and this caring attitude toward the people I work with.
Yeah, I mean, burnout is so real. I mean, some people say it's like kind of the new workplace injury, right?
Yep.
The unseen workplace injury. It really is. And, it's not solvable by one thing, but it's certainly solvable by giving people less work, right? I'm so surprised when they talk about burnout. There's all of these things people talk about, and, some of them are very valid, like a 4-day work week. I support that. A lot of the data shows that people are just as effective, and more effective, more productive, more engaged, get the same amount done, if not more, working only 4 days, as then bullshitting on the 5th day, right? Or bullshitting up a good part of the other 5 days a week, right? If people know, okay, I'm going to get Friday off or Monday off, I'm going to get my work done. People are very responsible. But, I'm very surprised that so many people with the burnout conversation, they say, oh yeah, we're doing this wellness day, and we have a mindfulness teacher, a yoga teacher, but they never say, we're just going to give less work. We're just going to, and that's really the solution, right?
Yeah.
And that we're going to care for people more, but we're going to give less work. We're just going to actually give out less work.
I mean, okay, just cut off all the bullshit things that you're doing, all the pretending at work.
Right, or cut meetings that don't need to happen, or cut a report that doesn't really need to happen. There's so much of this stuff. And people don't want to admit it, because then they feel like, oh, well, then my job's going to be in question. It's like, no, it's not. Just give less work. So that would be a forward-thinking way to approach it.
Awesome. Yeah. Smiley, any closing thoughts from your side? Some advice, some thing that you would like to give ahead for the audience? So then we wrap it up with that.
Yeah, I would say that just to remember, when it comes to this topic, I really kind of believe, you're not alone. With loneliness, I think that was something I realized with writing this book. Like people all over the world are dealing with this. You're not alone. Reach out to someone to talk to, and that we're not going to solve this alone. This is a topic that permeates every aspect of society, and we really need to kind of build these bridges and work together to solve it. And we're kind of like creating, mini kind of networks of people that are out, human connection kind of leaders. You could call them leaders, you could call them facilitators, you could call them builders, community builders, whatever. We need people like that everywhere in all organizations, freelancers, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, digital nomads, people that work at huge companies, people that work at startups. Like everyone is on the team. Like it needs to be on board, right? It's not going to be like one person or one czar, right, that figures this out. So just to kind of remind ourselves of that this is kind of one of those problems that requires people doing work at different levels all of the time. And I think that maybe makes it a little bit more, well, that's intimidating, but it also maybe makes it a little bit more like, oh, wow, like this is bigger than just me. And it's like, yes, it is. It really is bigger than just you. Yeah.
Smiley, thank you very much for all your insights and thoughts about that. I really appreciate that sharing from your side. If people want to know more about your work, probably want to get you as a speaker, how can they connect with you? What should they do? How can they find out more?
Yeah, please connect with me on my website, smileypozwalski.com. Follow me on LinkedIn, Adam Smiley Pozwalski. And yeah, check out my books. You can get them wherever books are sold. Those would be the best places. Yeah.
We're going to link all that. And I hope when your next book is coming up, we can probably get connected real physical on the virtual frontier. And I'm going to visit you at your place. You're not so far away. And right. we do a real live show with real hugging and all this around.
That'd be awesome.
Getting connected.
Or a show in Mexico.
Yeah, or show in Mexico. Yeah. Whatever comes first, you let me know.
Okay.
Smiley, thank you very much, and see you around.
Okay, cheers.
Back we are from a deep dive into the world of friendship and connectedness. Do you feel the urge to connect or reconnect with a dear friend or coworker? Go ahead, do it now. It will work, scientifically proven. Grab also a copy of Smiley's book and learn even more about how to build meaningful connections and friendships and fight loneliness. Find the link in the show notes below. We hope you found this session helpful and you have now some new tools and insights how to create a better workplace for the future. What have you missed in this episode? How can we do better? Let us know in the comments and reviews. And as always, before you leave, hit the subscribe button, give us a thumb up and share this session around with your friends and colleagues. Your action helps us to grow this show and keep you informed and updated on trending topics about the future of work. On behalf of the team here at the Virtual Frontier, I want to thank you for listening today. So until the next episode, keep exploring your frontiers.